you all. This is our first religious leaders workshop for the year. We're very excited for 2026 as always. We left our last session quite energized by the topic, and I'll go a little bit more into that as part of the introductions. But for the beginning, if you want to, you're more than welcome to pop your name in the chat. You're more than welcome to put on your camera. We have Seth here and he loves seeing all your faces, and we all do. So if you're comfortable with it, please go ahead, switch on your camera. You may introduce yourself. You might switch on your, unmute yourself and introduce, or put your name in the chat box. And then we're just going to wait another few minutes. I'm hoping we're going to get more people, which I think we are. The numbers are going up quickly in this workshop. So yeah, just a couple of minutes and we'll give people to join and then we can kick off with this morning's program. Seth, Marisha, do you want to say a few hellos?
Good morning, everybody. Grateful to be here with you and wonderful to see 32 participants on a Tuesday morning. I'm looking forward to the learning and looking forward to how we can, help each other hear stories and do better in promoting and enriching healthy families. Thank you so much, Anissa and the National Shelter Movement for the invite. Look forward to an interactive session this morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Hope that you're well. My name is Seth Naiker. I'm from LA, not Los Angeles, but Lower Alberton. And today I'm signing in from our Heartlines offices in Jan Smuts.
I thought you were going to say studio, Seth.
Okay, Heartline Studio. Please, at this time, I'll ask you, those of us, just to celebrate the moment of us arriving, you are saying hello and saying hi in the chat box, so that's good. But please, those of you that can, we'd like to celebrate the moment and capture those of us that have arrived. Turn on your videos so that we can do that as a part of our time together. And these images will also be used for socials, and we will also pass it to you via Anissa and the team at the National Shelter Movement. So if you're willing, please join us in turning on your videos now. So we'll give you 30 seconds because I know some of you are looking for where do I turn it on. It's down at the bottom of your screen where it says video. So there we go. There's some people turning on their videos. We'll give it another few seconds. Seems like some of you have not put on your studio faces this morning. There we go. I'm going to take one screenshot of those of us that are here.
Seth, that doesn't give them an option to put on their videos.
Okay, yeah, Melanie, so if you can allow the folk in. Okay, I think Melanie can help us, Marisha, with allowing participants to turn on their videos.
Okay, so I'm going to be promoting all the panelists then for that option set. If you can give them maybe a minute or two.
Okay, yes, that's fine for now.
Perfect.
Yes, cool. So we'll give you that moment or two. Apologies, and then Melanie will change up the settings again. Lovely stuff. We're going to wait on you. And people arriving. We're up to 39 participants now. So again, it's awesome having you here. Back to you now, for you now, Anissa. And just give us a moment as Melanie turns up the programming so that we can capture our pictures.
Thanks for that, Seth. Again, a warm welcome to everybody. My name is Anissa. I'm the coordinator of the National Shelter Movement of South Africa. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, before some of you joined, this is our first religious leaders workshop for 2026. For those of you who's joining for the first time, this is a collaboration that we started almost 2 years ago. We've timelessly held workshops every 3 months. Attendance has been improving. We've had a mixture of religious leaders, faith-based um, social workers, people working in shelters, people working with children, people working in the health sector. So it's been really, really mixed participation, a lot of it positive. So just a bit of a, not too much, but just so that we can tie up today's session with our previous one, we looked at reimagining positive masculinity, which I'm sure some of you have stumbled across the concepts. It's working with men and boys. It has a lot of relevance in the work that faith-based leaders are doing. We all know that gender-based violence and patriarchy go hand in hand in a lot of ways, influenced by religion, influenced by culture. And today we're going to extend that topic a little bit, and we're going to look at systems like the family and family relationships, family dynamics, the influences again of culture and the ecosystem on the family and on relationships. So we're excited about the topic because we know that there's going to be, from it, we're going to generate lots and lots of interesting discussions, lots of interesting input. Yeah, so I welcome you again. I want you to enjoy this morning session. But before I hand over to our very capable presenters, I'm going to do brief introductions. I've done this before, but yes, Seth Naika is social justice Christian. He goes about making a difference through speaking, writing, and critical learning. He makes impact amongst his family, faith, and beloved community. Seth is a very, very busybody. Seth is the MD at Indie Afrique, associate and facilitator of Heartlines, member of coordination team at Faith Action to End GBV, faculty and member of leadership team at Volmwood Youth Leadership Training Program, associate and facilitator of Columbia Leadership Trust, church out and part-time faculty at GIBS. So, Seth, thank you very much. In spite of your very hectic schedule, you've always availed yourself of our program. And then we have the lovely Marisha Singh Naika. Marisha is CEO of Indie Afrique, relationship and family therapist, advanced circle keeper, a PR activist of Faith Action at NGBV, and community mobilizer with Heartlines. So there you go, our presenters this morning. I hand over to you.
Thank you, Anissa. Thanks, Ed, for sharing the slides. I think we're good to go, yes. So let me just say, as Seth is getting the slides ready and as he will take over, we want to say thank you again to the National Shelter Movement and to Anissa Musa and her team. Anissa was at our strategy launch, which was with the Faith Action Collective, who is an interfaith movement working to end gender-based violence, with We Will Speak Out South Africa as our secretariat. We've been able to build this relationship of how do we include many of us who are people of faith, whether you find yourselves in the different sectors of a social worker, or perhaps in the healthcare system, or the legal or judicial systems. Up to, I think, 87% of South Africans claim to be people of faith. And we know that faith plays a pivotal role in how we view social norms and how we connect with each other. And therefore, the focus on how can our faith and how can faith leaders, religious leaders, be more aware, but also do more in making sure that their faith spaces are safe, and that also that there is support for survivors in those spaces. And so today, as Anissa mentioned, that we were looking at the topic of positive masculinity last year. We had some great look topics of culture, of talking about the cultural aspects of systems and how that connects with our faith and how that impacts the gender justice work. How does it impact gender-based violence? And today we thought also in the month of love, which the National Shelter Movement has looked at in terms of relationships, we look at the broader family system and how does our faith and how do faith leaders play a role in that, in making sure that we promote and enrich healthy families, which in many ways are the foundations for our society. So thank you so much once again. I'm Marisha Singh Naika, and I'm with We Will Speak Out South Africa and the Faith Action Collective and also Heartlines. Seth, over to you. I think, are you all ready?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good to have you here. We took some screen grabs. There's about 46 of us online, and this is awesome. We're grateful to be partnering with the National Shelter Movement. And I just want to say that I'm the way that I know not to put forward my credentials, but only my confidence, is I should also say I'm married to Marisha. And we've been in this journey working in the faith sector for some years. And it's really an honor today to have you with us. Thank you. I see that there's some introductions, Anissa and Marisha. Those of you that haven't put in your names and details, we know you registered, so we've got the database, which we're happy to share with you all as well. But that database will be shared with the organizations of the National Shelter Movement, Faith Action, and Heartlines as we collaborate on this amazing journey. So please, check in with your names, your organizations. And one more thing I'd like to ask you this morning, won't you please put forward your expectations at this time of why you've arrived and what's the learning piece that you want to do. And for those expectation piece, I'll hand back to Anissa as she sets the tone. And by way of us, program-wise, I'd just like to share with you all how we're flowing, and then that will be out the way. So, Marisha, just let me know if you guys can see this clearly. Marisha?
Yes,
Anissa?
Seth, thank you. That's good. We can see it.
Okay, good. So everyone, here we are. We're trying to move in this way through our programming this morning, and intros and check-ins. Marisha will take us through the container. I'll speak a little bit about role of faith leaders, and then we're going to be having a movie viewing around this time. We'll utilize the movie viewing from my slide deck, but also I'll ask Marisha and Anissa to assist with sending you a link, because if it doesn't work well for you via Zoom on the webinar, you can watch it on a separate device. And then we're going to come back with some discussion and dialogue on that movie viewing called Family Portrait. We'll go into what we call Ask, Listen, Tell, contextual examples and practical tools, promotion and strong family relationships. In the space of discussion and reflecting, that will be us working together. And then again, we'll have another moment where we'll reflect on these three realities. And I'll also speak a little bit about the work that we had reflected on of the role of men and fathers as well. Marisha will take us in around about 11:15 to the Four Horsemen and bring us through that with some takeaway activities. And then there'll be some closing and thank yous and checkout. So by way of us doing our program, we're there. Marisha, can I hand back to Anissa right now for the expectations?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for that, Seth. Everybody, whenever we attend a program, we like to know what our participants are hoping to get out of the session. So it guides our discussions, and there's engagement and constructive engagement. So you're more than welcome to unmute and share an expectation, or you may type in something in the chat box if you'd like. So I see we have a nice mix of participants this morning. Thank you, everybody, again. We've got people here from shelters, people again working with children, people from the faith sector as well. So please feel free to unmute and share an expectation. or I'll look out for it in the chat box.
I see Anissa, Annie Maboa has said how to strengthen child protection in churches and families.
That's a big issue, child protection. Gender-based violence definitely affects children, and we see that all the time, especially for those of us working in shelters where we have a survivor who has children, and we're not always able to place the child with the mum. So that does become a bit problematic. But yes, thank you for that, Annie. Anybody else? I see your hand.
The hands by Vanessa.
Vanessa, go ahead.
Vanessa, you're muted.
Vanessa?
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me? Okay, good
Yes, we
morning.
can hear you, Vanessa.
Morning.
Go ahead, Vanessa. Good morning.
Very good morning to all of you. Just to let you know, I'm also representing the National Steering Committee for Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. But I also
Sorry,
want to
Vanessa.
let you know that I
I'm
am.
not sure there's an echo. I don't know if everybody is hearing the echo.
Yes, I am.
Everybody is.
Yes.
I don't know where is it coming from.
Let's mute you for now, Anissa. It's gone now.
It's
No,
back.
it's back. Melanie, can you please assist us?
Yeah, so I see that Vanessa signed in with 2 devices. That could possibly be the reason.
Okay, so Vanessa, please, if you can you tell us which device needs to remain, Vanessa? Or can you get off the other one? Okay. Tell me, has that echo gone away?
Correct, yes. It's
Yes.
now
Okay,
resolved.
so Vanessa, I've muted both your devices. Please, maybe you can exit and sign back in
Or
on
she
the
can
device
just
that you're
unmute just one device to talk.
Okay, good,
And
yes.
make sure you're away from the other. Yeah.
I'm only
Okay.
on one device.
No, Vanessa, I think your device is signed in twice. So let me remove. If we remove you, okay. Vanessa, I think you're gonna have to sign in, but we've got your sign in twice, even though you are only on one device. Okay, Nisa and Vanessa, please. Until you do that, we can't hear you because we've unfortunately got a technical glitch with you being here twice. Anissa, back to you.
Thank you, Seth. Vanessa, alternatively, if you would like to type your expectation in the chat box until we sort out the login and the
Is this
sound
better now?
issue as a result of. Okay, Vanessa?
Is this better now?
That's better.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you so
very
much.
Okay, sorry about that.
Thank
My
you.
apologies.
Okay, please go ahead. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that we
It's
can get to hear
sorted,
your
yeah.
voice.
Okay, so I've also worked very extensively with UNICEF South Africa and the Department of Social Development in order to work in the religious sector with regards to child protection. So this is obviously a topic that's very close to my heart. A lot of work has been done, and I thought that I would, it's not merely a question, but a suggestion also, that I have a training for the religious leaders in the space of child protection. This has been endorsed by the University of South Africa, Department of Social Development, And of course, it was muscled by UNICEF South Africa. Because one of the things that I found, I mean, this is my 39th year of working in the community, and I found that the church, particularly, well, I won't just say church, but many faith-based organizations are not compliant when it works in the space of children, that we're not creating safe spaces for children. Right now, just for information purposes, I'm dealing with 9 religious leaders who have raped children in the religious institution. And that in itself is a display of what's really happening, that the religious organization is not necessarily a safe space. And so there's no code of conduct. Most of the leaders within that space are not vetted against the Child Protection Register. And this is a challenge that we see in the community. And that is the reason why we embarked on a roadshow to go train people in the space to get them to register their organizations, to also use this as a strategy to curb child abuse, particularly in the religious sector itself. Before we try to reach out to the community, religious leaders have access to people at least once or twice on a weekly basis. And that the conversation of child protection is not something that we're having. And that seems to be a challenge. So I
Yes.
thought I'll just put it there. If you need any more
Yes, thank
information,
you.
you can contact me. Thank you.
Please, you're welcome, Vanessa. Please put it in the chat box, but we're receiving that as an expectation. And we thank Vanessa for telling us about that. Put it into the chat box, Vanessa, the links and so on. And Anissa and Marisha and I will also follow that on. I see
Thank you
that
so much.
there's some other expectations coming through. Back to you,
Vanessa, thank you
Anissa.
very much for the link. Thank you, Seth. Yes, so going back to the other expectations, yes, it's an important follow-up, and you're right, Vanessa, it is a gap. Also going on, we have an expectation from Apiwe, who says to learn more strategies to promote healthy family relationships, practical tools as well. That's also shared by Eliethu. So yes, we're really hoping that that's going to be but it is one of the objectives this morning. So I'm hoping that expectation is going to be met. Let me just check any more. Uh, ah, okay. So I think there were some comments in the chat box more about the sound issues, but in terms of expectations, I think we kind of covered them in terms of practical tools and strategies and promoting family relationships, which I think is a big expectation this morning, which we're going to focus on. Thank you very much. If anyone still, I see there's another comment, we just see more family restoration, education and programming should be done. Yes, definitely more programs for families, family preservation, family restoration, education. Yes, so there's a lot of work that we could be doing with families, because remember that families are a system and it's made up of different individuals, and each individual has their own need and they bring to the family different things. So it definitely needs to be treated as a system and holistically as possible. Thank you for that. For those of you who've shared your expectations, you still, if you would like to, if you think of anything, my expectation, Zulile, says is on getting information and embarking gender-based and violation of rights and creating awareness. Okay, so that within the context of the family, yes, and we know that lots of families are in communities are influenced by patriarchal cultural norms within and outside of the home. So yes, that's something that probably will get touched on. I want to gain clearer understanding. That's from Louisa. Clearer understanding of what helps families stay healthy. Okay, so that's also about preservation, right? So how do we keep families healthy, resilient, particularly where children are exposed to? I'm hoping to learn practical tools and communication approaches that support the emotional well-being and abilities. So that's a lot of things, and I think also again it has to do with a number of things. You mentioned resilience, communication, relationships. So yes, again, as a system and holistically, we'll try to cover as much as we can in this session and see where that takes us. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so there's an introduction from Lelang. Thank you for that. I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly, but forgive me if I haven't. Okay, I think, Seth, we've covered all the expectations for this morning.
Yes, and we noticed that there are more people coming in. If you missed the check-ins, we are here with the National Shelter Movement. Anissa Musa is moderating. Myself and Marisha from the organizations of Heartlines and Faith Action to End Gender-Based Violence are here together. We've just covered some check-ins. So if you've just arrived, please introduce yourself and also feel free to put an expectation of why you came. Just that we all align. It's good that we have expectations. Some things can be met, some things will have to be visited. What we did last year is we had a series, and we wish that this series will continue. So just to remind you all, and that we get our minds together on the same page. That's the kind of the rollout of the program today. If you've just arrived, then you've missed some of the check-ins that we had going on. But we're really grateful that you are here. So this is the kind of the rollout. We've moved in there now, and we want to hand over to Marisha as she takes us into this activity around the container of co-creating. So Marisha, with those words, colleagues are welcome to keep putting the expectations in. But like we said, this is the kind of focus today. We're trying to land some discussions around the contextual examples, promoting strong families. We're going to be using a focus on the movie viewing with a family portrait, and then some discussions and dialogues as well that will allow us to give some feedback time that it's an interactive learning session. So Marisha, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seth, and thank you to Anissa for getting us through the just expectations. And thank you for putting your expectations either on the chat or vocalizing it. It's always great to see such interest in wanting to make sure that our families, our faith spaces, wherever we are working, is just a little bit more safer. And some of the expectations that came out today concerning safeguarding, concerning policies within systems, whether it's the faith-based organizations, whether it's the churches or temples. And I think Vanessa even spoke about how do we have those safeguarding policies in place. And for many of our faith institutions, this was an area that was often neglected. And I think it's calling us together to really say, how do we do better? How do we keep each other accountable? And so there's many different processes that's happening now within our country with the CRL Rights Commission about wanting to see how can survivors find a space to be able to share what has happened to them in faith spaces, or what we would term as spiritual abuse as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. And saying that, it's this topic is never easy because in faith spaces, often there's been sometimes a culture of silence or submission or keeping things quiet. It's very hard to talk in some spaces about the tough issues, whether it's got to do with violence or abuse or sexuality, and even more so in faith spaces. Many of us were reared in cultures, in families, that these are taboo topics. And so we want to invite you today to have a space that is safe for you to share, that we hold things in confidence, even if it's about our own faith spaces, even if it's about our own experiences, and to know that this is an environment where we are not going to judge, but to reserve judgment a little as we try and get out what we need to say. But it's also one that would allow us to share emotions, be it, or to share our anger. If there was a lack of help from a faith space, because those things are going to help us to see what have we missed, what have we not looked at. And so we want to hold space for those vulnerable emotions rather than expressing them. And then to know that it may even bring discomfort. It may bring, it's risky being vulnerable. And we invite each other to say that this would help us in many ways also to move towards healing, towards mutual learning and accountability. Because when we are able to say, this is what has went wrong, this is what has not been good, this is how we've missed out or messed up, we are able to say, okay, now what do we do to make amends? What do we do to make right? And so we want to just remind everybody here today about that as we continue in our time together, as we share, as we talk authentically about some of the things that we are seeing in family systems, that we are seeing in our church or in our temples or our mosques. And it's because it's about us. It's not just about, it's out there. It's really what we have faced. It's really what many of us have experienced. So it's the lived, embodied experience that we're inviting each other to. And how do we hold that together? How do we make sure that we are listening well, that we are reserving judgment, and that we are moving to a place of mutual understanding? So if you agree with that, please give me a thumbs up, or you're welcome to unmute and say yes, just so that we get your confirmation that you enter into the space with that. So in the slides, I'll give you a minute to quickly read through it. It's just some important things that we also want to be mindful as people have shared and as people come, you work with survivors, you may even work with perpetrators. You yourself may be that, a perpetrator or a survivor in a system of a family system as well, or a faith system. And what we want to make sure is that there's mutual respect and kindness, and that we all commit to that. So I do see some thumbs up, and that's what we want to make sure today. So as a way to check in as we move forward, so thank you for those that have agreed to that. We do appreciate that, and we want to make sure that we are mindful of what it means to create a safe space. Even as we talk about it, we also need to be that, a safe space. So here's a check-in question. We maybe can take 2 or 3 comments on just people unmuting, and then maybe the rest can put it on the chat. So positive practices in families are intentional actions or routines and attitudes that foster nurturing, resilient, and a loving environment. These practices enhance emotional well-being, strengthen bonds, and promote positive development for all. Would you please share what is maybe one positive practice that is important to your family? Maybe it was in the holidays, the festive, maybe in the month of love, or something that you as a family practice, and it's become a positive one. It's an intentional action that has really promoted nurturing, that has helped you be resilient, that has created that loving environment. So please do share that in the chat, and any one would like to unmute and just share with us from their own family experience what that has been. So Amohelang is said presence. Wow, just one word and how important that is. Thank you so much for that. Anybody else? Communication. Thank you, Louisa. And today we will look at some of the strategic ways in which we could have open, honest, genuine communication, positive communication. So that's very important. Thank you for that, Louisa. Anybody else? Anybody that would like to unmute? Sharing at least one meal together and talk to each other. Oh, that's so important. I think it's very difficult in some families to really sit down because people have different schedules. And then there's also this devices, that's often around that takes people's attention. But coming alongside having a meal together, a lot does happen, and bonds and connections are more deeper. And actually research shows that as well, that families that really eat together and have a meal together, it has so much of benefits. So thank you so much for that. Zolile is saying getting together on Christmas, having dinner, communicating with your family of matters that make positive, supporting one another physically and emotionally. From Mary Ann. Koliwe is saying constructive criticism. Wow, that's a great one. And it's something that we don't often do. And we have sometimes also learned ways in which we want to give constructive criticism, but we don't always have the tools to do it. So very important, Kaliwe. Thank you for that. Any other ones? Anyone would like to share an experience or positive practice? Staying until sleeping in one room, communicating and sharing experiences. I think that's definitely really fun, like having a sleepover, if that's what I'm understanding as a PWA. As my kids are, most of them teenagers, that is something that definitely brings up some good fun and laughter. Supporting each other in good and bad times, giving each other a call and checking in on each other. So thank you for those beautiful practices and positive practices as a check-in this morning. And that's to say that many of us in our families, in our family systems, we all come from families and we know what family drama is. You have to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down about that one. So I know you, so I know you know what I mean when I say we all have our family drama. And sometimes this is the thing about families. I can see many thumbs up. So when I say family drama, it's I can only imagine, because as a family therapist, I work with families, and there really is so much that goes on that can really tear you down and break you apart. But then there's also moments of healing, moments of where we have these positive practices that gets us through. And what you just did this morning is share with each other what has been your way of being able to be resilient as a family. So thank you for doing that. And it's important for us to continue to enrich that, to continue to preserve that, as Anissa said. And we are grateful that you could share that with us this morning. And so that's very important, that we spent a moment to continue appreciating not only the mentioning what's been hard in our families, but also what has been positive in our families, what has helped us get through, what has in many ways been an aspect of giving us strength. So I'm going to take Vanessa's hand, and then we're going to move after that if there isn't anyone else. Vanessa, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to contribute something here. I think
Yes,
one of
please.
the challenges that families are experiencing is the influence of social media. When we were growing up, we remember that we actually had a face-to-face conversation with our family members. And it seems that now, I mean, I work on a task team for human trafficking, and my technical space is the digital space. And I find that a lot of families are now resorting to social media communication rather than a face-to-face. And I agree with some of the comments on the chat where it says that even greeting each other, people are now sending messages. If you want to speak from one room to another, people are actually, instead of getting into a physical space with that person, we're living virtually. And I think that that is something that we have to curb somehow, albeit that it will be almost impossible, but getting to the point where we reduce time spent on social media. Thank you.
Absolutely. Social media has been something that, in many ways can be used for the good, but in many ways also it's been really harmful. And I think that that's what's important in many of these different practices, whether we've inherited these practices or whether it's been passed on. We have to assess, is it harmful or is it healing? Is it helping? And sometimes we need to find a balance between that, or harmony amongst that, because sometimes it's hard to kind of discern, where is it at? And that's what's important in assessing, I think, in family systems, in different families, what is working for us, what is really harming us, and what is not helping. And can we try and transform those? And that's not an easy process, but it's definitely a possible one. Politely greeting each other every morning. Thank you, Koliwe. That's an important one. I think sometimes with people who are not morning persons, we have some grumpiness in our families. And how do we make sure that we have a smile for each other? How do we have that affirmation early in the morning, which really sets the tone for the rest of your day? So thank you for those. Please, let's continue to remember those positive practices. I'm going to hand back to Anissa or Seth, who's taking us to the next part.
Thank you for that, Marisha. Thank you, everybody, for your very important input. Yes, the family is a special place. We know that primary socialization takes place when a child and how a child is raised in a family. And it's so important that that's healthy, even for self-esteem purposes. You know, we talk about, and I'm just thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how we talk about after obviously your shelter, we talk about membership and we talk about emotional security and safety, and that comes from the family. And it's so important that we make the conscious effort to nurture those relationships, because it has a real influence on how children grow up and how it influences their future relationships going forward. So yes, thank you to Marisha for taking us through that important discussion. It sounds simple and basic, but we really need to ask ourselves, are we doing those important little things like eating together, like greeting each other, like sitting together and having a conversation in person, Vanessa, and not through social media? But yes, that has really, how can I say, hindered our interaction with each other in terms of quality interactions and engagements with each other. And it's important that even parents work especially hard to make sure that children maintain those relationships long term. So yeah, I think that's the foundation also of our topic today. And like I mentioned in my introduction, we have relationships within our families, but we also have relationships outside of the family that influence. So, in one of them, and a very important thing is we know that religion, our spirituality, our belief systems, our culture, they are part of who we are. They form part of our identity, they're part of our whole, and yes, they are going to influence our behavior, our thinking, and our relationships. So it's so important that again, our relationship, even with our Creator, is something that positively influences our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with our family members. And on that note, I'm going to hand you over to Seth again, who is going to take us through a section looking at the role of faith leaders. So over to you, Seth.
Hi, thank you, everybody. I hope that you're doing okay. If you're enjoying the conversation so far and the learning, please use your reaction. And I'm quite enjoying it, even though I'm here to present. But the interactions on the chat box, listening to Marisha and Anissa, it's amazing. So I'm giving some round of applause. I'm celebrating with some round of applause. And as we're thinking about this segment, please come into the space of reflecting on your own religious space. So at the get-go, if you would, at this time, if you are connected to, a faith perspective, or if you're part of a church, or if you call yourself a Christian or Muslim or a Hindu, please at this time, I would like to just make that present in the chat box. So if we can blow up the chat box with what is the faith that you carry. So in my journey, I've described myself, and you may have heard Anissa saying a Christian, but then I put a clarification in light of religious leaders and so many kind of things that we've seen irregularly being put forward. And I put this as my descriptor. So, if you think about my faith, I'll say to people very directly, well, I'm a social justice Christian. And that's helped me to also open up a conversation and clarify. So please, at this time, if you would, please pop it in. What's your religious connection? And what kind of religious base are you coming from? Are you a practicing person of faith, and where are you located? So let's blow up the chat box. There's about 51 of us here. If you're willing, please let's participate. And we wanna take into account in light of this work of the well-being of families and promoting the well-being of families. Well, and if we're working with the faith sector, what kind of religious bases are we connected to? Okay, so thank you for those that have replied. We're seeing a few Christians, a lot of Christians actually. I hope that there's other folk from other faiths as well. Thank you, Sheila and Mamelo, Mary Ann, Peter Johnson. Yes. Good to see you all putting in your responses. Thank you, Vanessa. And Vanessa says, I'm a pastor Christian. Yeah, I like that one. Yes, I'm gonna give a reaction for that one. Vanessa, I'm a pastor Christian. I'm giving a smile. So I've got a fellow pastor here. Vanessa, I too am a pastor Christian. Thank you for that. Ayaka Rapia, I'm a gay Christian. Thank you for that. These descriptors I'm a traditional healer. Thank you, Polile. And we want to acknowledge all the diversities of where we come in our religious tradition. Stobile, I'm a Christian. Okay, please feel free to, and if you're not a Christian or if you're any other faith, thank you, Anissa, I'm a Muslim. Can I get an Amin for the Muslims in the house? Thank you for that response. The reason I'm asking you this is in light of thinking about the fact that you've already heard and seen that when it comes to the well-being of children and families and communities, there have been some issues raised. If you have been blessed with a good spiritual leader or faith-based leader, I can tell a story of some of my mentors that have come from the religious space. And I remember one of my colleagues, Elroy Trout, who met me in a youth work environment. And he met me in the space of an NGO called Youth for Christ. And I was on a training program. And many years later, I'm now in my late 40s. I met him when I was around my teens. But he was a person of faith and a person involved in the work of development and youth work. And to be honest, I'm grateful that I can say here is an ethical leader who was faith-based as a leader, but also an educated person who wanted me to read and learn and understand. And I didn't come up in a tradition where faith became a restrictive, way of thinking. So I don't know how it is that you've landed in where you've come from, but maybe in the response, and we can again just blow up the chat box. Has your interactions with religious leaders and your experiences been positive or negative or both? Okay. So has it been positive or negative or both? And if it's been both in a significant way, maybe we can put up a love sign like that. If it's been negative only or majority, and you want to just highlight, maybe you can put is there a thumbs down on the reaction? I don't know. Maybe if it's negative, we'll put that sign there, kind of an exclamation sign. If it's been, just okay, and you've not had any negative, maybe a thumbs up. So just feel free to respond. Okay, and I've asked three things. The one, both, and the heart sign. The one where we know is negative, kind of the wow sign. The positive sign, a thumbs up. And we're asking this not to be offensive in any way, but questions have been raised about religious leaders and their roles in light of the well-being of children, the well-being of families, in promoting healthy families. All right. So let me go to a slide deck, and as you remember, whatever it is that we're sharing with you, the slide deck and so on will be sent to you all now that you've registered. But let me bring in and let me read from here. The role of religious leaders in promoting and enriching healthy families. Religious leaders are often one of the most respected figures in their communities. I hope you'd agree. They play a powerful role in shaping attitudes, opinions, and behaviors because their members trust them as leaders. Especially at the family and community level, religious leaders have the power to raise awareness and influence attitudes, behaviors, and practices. They can shape social values in line. They can shape social values in line with faith-based teachings. Religious leaders can do these things, become aware of what positive family practices are, and motivate for that in their communities through different ways. They can encourage families adopt other healthy behaviors that reflect values in keeping with religious teachings. They can model appropriate and supportive behaviors. They can create safe and brave spaces in their facilities for families to feel safe. So, friends, at this time, I kind of want to pause with you because that's said in positive. However, there are many people, and we would give it this kind of entitlement, that have experienced a tough time, a ridiculing time, a challenging time, a time where inside their faith communities, they haven't felt safe. They haven't felt well. In fact, today in the work of Faith Action to End Gender-Based Violence, we call it, by this term, they've experienced spiritual abuse inside their faith sector or inside their faith community. Myself, I've worked as a pastor for some years. Over the last 16 years, I've had the great honor to work in several communities around the country, and more especially in Johannesburg South. And in the church context, while I am a pastor, within our environment, we see lots of irregular behavior, even in a church context, where there are abuses. We see church leadership not knowing how to engage, for example, domestic violence, and working with survivors of gender-based violence in the church. Unfortunately, sometimes in the religious sector, people seem to do a big cover-up over issues. And being, like I stated to you, some of my own focus and my learning as a religious leader, where I say as a social justice Christian, I've had to face some of the brunt when we've raised these questions with our own councils, our elders, our presbyteries, because people don't really want to do the work. In fact, sometimes it's easier to sweep it under the carpet. And so a lot more, like Marisha mentioned, we need for our faith sector and religious leaders and the faith environment to be a container of possibility for safety, for courage, and accountability. One of the tools that I've used over the years as a minister and as a faith leader has been this tool of ask, listen, tell. And I want to submit that to you. We've used it as an anchoring of our work last year. And I think this year, as we build into 2026, let this be a part of. This tool is a toolkit that we resource from Heartlines. And if you want to keep it in your memory banks as a space, the campaign is called What's Your Story? And for several years, Marisha and I, together with Anissa and many others in the Heartlines community, communities like Faith Action, and also within religious and faith communities around the country and around the continent, we've been able to utilize this simple toolkit that says, well, in a simple way, but yet helps us to deal with the complex problems, that there is a power in our story sharing. And it brings to us the reality that story sharing has power, personal story sharing. And we speak about asking, listening, and telling. And if you think about it, where faith is being utilized in a positive way, there are values that underpin our faith traditions. So have a look with me when we talk about, as a religious leader, possibly we can embed this, that I've got a tool of asking, I've got a tool of listening, I've got a tool of telling. And this is the way we position it. Values for asking: seek first to understand. Be curious, yet respectful. Ask without judgment. Be sincere. Affirm as you ask. Values for listening: listen with your heart. Don't make it about you. Slow down as you listen. Don't judge. Don't interrupt. Don't give advice unless asked. Keep confidences. Values for telling. Own your story. Be truthful. Only share as much as you feel comfortable. Maintain privacy. Be true to your emotions, but be respectful. Be willing to be vulnerable. So in light of where we are speaking today about the reality and learning together about the well-being of families and what families require in this tough time that we see happening in our world, but also within the midst of life where sometimes we have joys and pains, here's a piece where we can say it's a values-based approach for faith leaders and faith people who are informed by faith to actually mobilize efforts for the well-being of family. And we submit that to you at this time. Before I continue on to family portrait, I want to pause and allow my colleagues also to speak in, Marisha and Anissa, if there's anything they want to add around this time, around this toolkit of asking, listening, and telling.
Thank you, Seth. I think just to add that, often in faith spaces and with religious leaders, which Seth has shared, he's one, Vanessa has shared, she's one, I myself am a religious leader, we often go straight to the telling. We want to tell people what to do, whether it's preaching, whether it's teaching. And this whole thing that you're bringing to us is asking people questions. It's sitting with them and understanding that for many people, they have the answers to the many issues and problems that they're facing. And how do we come alongside and really listen deeply, really listen well, really reserve our judgment? Because we are quick to do that. We are quick to, say, okay, if you've done this, then it's because of that. And this is what you must do to make it right. But in faith leaders really sitting with the questions, with the members, with being able to listen deeply, and in telling that we allow the telling to happen from they even telling us and we telling with them. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Marisha and Seth, for that. I think for me, one of the questions that comes to mind is the element of intention and what is it that I'm doing? What is my work? What is my purpose as a religious leader? Am I there to judge? Am I there to support? Am I there to, when we say as religious leaders, we there to serve our communities, and to be able to serve our communities, we need to understand our community members. And I think that for me is just ringing so loud as I hear Seth and Marisha as well. Thanks for that. I think also, I never want to refer to the chat, but quickly I see someone posted something about boundaries. Need to understand, religious leaders need to understand their boundaries, especially around sensitive cases. So yes, containment is important. We, in our field, we often talk about confidentiality, but I think we have to think about our role around protecting and about containing, but the interests of our communities and our community members.
So yesterday, Anissa, and to folk that are here, I had a conversation with a colleague of mine who's in Northern Cape, and he raised questions around accountability of, for example, church and religious organizations in light of what's going on with domestic-based violence, intimate family violence, etc., and gender-based violence as well. And so what we discussed was, that there is a requirement, and maybe people are like caught up with what's been happening in the media, but on a healthy side, while we know there needs to be a separation between, if I can say, the state and religious practices, there needs to be accountability. So in the same way that a social worker or a psychologist would be part of a fraternity, a part of a licensing, we need to have accountability for faith-based leaders, especially when irregularities have popped up, where people have explained and expressed this has been spiritual abuse. This is where, I've been told, because in my faith environment, that I don't have a right for my safety to have a separation from my partner or my spouse in light of abuses that people have faced. And so these become tough conversations. I can also tell you all that at one time when I was on a program around, the well-being of families, but as a faith leader, how I would support the work of, for example, the well-being of children and gender-based violence. I took a practical exercise back to the church I worked at, and there was really just a kind of a denialism that these realities were taking place. While we as faith leaders, as a pastor, I was counseling people. We knew that it needed to be addressed, the fact that women were facing abuses by their husbands and vice versa in what would become heated conversations. Violence would break out. And a lot of the time, we don't want to talk about it. It creates spaces for people to speak about the depth of their pain and the depth of their trauma. So this is important to us. Louisa, thank you for your response here. Solomon saying, how do we distinguish between personal religious faith and formal religious doctrine in the space, especially since we come from different denominations? And how do we ensure that our spiritual grounding supports families without creating a sense of one way only? What a great reflection. One of the texts in my own faith, and on Sunday I was with our community in Orange Farm, and we reflected on the writings of the Apostle Paul. And in this letter to the Romans, Apostle Paul wrote this letter, which is stated that it's a beautiful doctrinal document. But ultimately, doctrines impact belief, and belief has to match our practice. Can you imagine that sometimes in the religious sector, in the faith leader sector, unfortunately, we can find where practice and belief doesn't see eye to eye. People are preaching what they're not willing to practice. So, yes, at this time, friends, if you're with us, we want to go into a space of thinking together through a creative way of story sharing, but not on our own stories, utilizing the tool of a movie that's called Family Portrait. This movie has been created by the organization of Heartlines, where Marisha and I have spent some of our years working in communities. And as you pay attention to this movie, it kind of sets in motion a picture of a family. And I'd like you to think about it. When you think about your family, what is the picture of your family? Okay, what comes to mind when you think your family picture? All right, and as you watch it, connect with the stories of the actors, connect with the personalities, and let it be a space that we can come out of to reflect on what we have learned about, or have some thoughts that have emerged that possibly encourage us and also challenge us about the work of the well-being of families. All right. So at this time, I'm going to be crossing over to that movie viewing, Family Portrait. We're watching that together. If you have any issues happening on the bandwidth on the webinar, there's a link there, and I'll ask Marisha or Nisa or Melanie to copy it and paste it again. You can also watch it off the webinar. But at this time, ladies and gentlemen, can I get some rounds of applause? We'll be crossing over to the movie viewing of...
And get your popcorn ready.
Family Portrait. Yes, if you got some popcorn, sorry, we can't provide it to you with Uber Eats, Marisha. As you said, get your popcorn ready. So, right, here we go. And please, if Melanie, if you can help me hide my
link.
Floating, but for now I can do that.
So if it's not streaming well for you on,
so let's just check.
The session set, if it's not streaming well, the link to the YouTube movies on the chat so they can watch it from there as well.
Yes, that's what we said. Okay, here we go, friends. Round of applause. Let's enjoy it together for the next 20 some odd minutes. Family Portrait, and then we come back to discussion and dialogue. Enjoy.
kopa o iketle ma bra bona tlo fita mothang e
That's
fitla
what I did, Faith. Some people seed money.
yeah I'll tell you what the cufflinks le di bracelet tse kwetseng seed money just in case I lebala lebitso la
One and only in charge. Sure, tabile piece a one ya Joe. Now work always off. And nakwa ngaro serious.
yeah so that ends on to the bro
Stara.
hey Faith Spanish says house but o gopole daring one ne bana ba phile ka metsi le tshepo fela
Faith. Ake ka ga tsepo ne. Mara. Wala ba hloka metsi ka mo ka rena re hloka metsi. No. Ake ka why?
oh wala
Cap ya.
eta re bona ke mangala gange ka triuseng ngwana alla nomvula o shebile nkaro ATM
Ka kgereza Faith.
ha ka fostana njaka da sit money
Oh, bahol baka sorry le nane pancha mo. El kwala ka kentele kama tayo.
Mosadi girlfriend ya ka kuba le lisia la ka no mvula mkhatshana hloko itse wadi
Umna gage.
awu mara ke tato wa ngwana
Bakeng se.
ma ba flot na mmahle
Ha o kgone ho fetela ka.
Hey. Atumela ka serobe. Daddy, this is Zenzile. Okay, kopa mo tshwarana ke batla o note.
ke re ka no mkenya ka re frame
She's beautiful. Hey.
ngwana sharp I mean Lena le sharp
ke botse ba gore ba shapo na if no le mo 100%.
Mama hle o ntse le busy.
A le bese kang wa sebetsa le ka le bese le manere.
ke le re getsetse
Ooh, but this is so sweet. Salwan.
Sweet yang. Wa bona ha ka nka thokolosi wa e beya pela hita e tla tshisa ntlo ena ya ka lore ha mo le rona re ka hara o di bona nthunyana tsetsenyantse ha ngwana ka ikenya ka mlomo ho fedile ka yena
Mama.
next side
no sa tsebe le jwale banna hona next se ba tsebang se ba tsebang fela go etsa bana hona o inkile ka tšhelete ya gore ka thokolosi kapa ile ya tswa ka shopong ya mata ais
ke rekisitse ngwa di painting tsaka
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, but I'm so proud.
I mean o se tsanyane fela mara monno lo re fila stuff
hantle
saka so
ais tsamaya re tla o bitsa ha ngwana a sa tshwere ke tlala hape motlho mo tla ja di-brush tsa gago
Mama wa le kahle. What don't you ke
ke itse ha ka la
bathong bana ba lla all the time. Ba rata lo fila touch ya bontate ba bona. So come on. Thank you.
Zeni or daddy
Daddy.
Ginger
Ginger. Hey. Hey. Oh, okay.
kgalo ka kamore ke batla ke gate ya ka ha ke batle di-open halfnyana tse snacks
Bathong o lisa le ngwana. It's okay, my angel. Hello. I ke tsebe hore mama o tlo kgutla neng ko tleliniking and my boss ba tlo mpona urgently. Ke pampile le bese ke le kentse mo fridge.
Lebese la letswe le fridging.
Hey man, ha tsoa o mo fe botlolo ya hae. Mare pele o mo fa yona, o kenya mo metsing a tjhesang. And before o mo fa yona what's it?
Ke testimonial guys. A ona le tse ke di boneng on TV.
Okay, malaria ya hae ke ana. Ha hloka hore mo change. O tla utlwa.
Yeah.
Are you sure? I need to go.
What's all that?
Porque serio joga mo ki mo hot no mo hlong ta.
Ngwana ke buka wena ke botsa ka ngwana. O ntse mo etsa. O mama.
Nna.
He batho. O tla mpolela go ntse ntweng gang. Hai man, ha ntse mama. Ha ntse wena, ka ntse kontle man. Bana go ayo. Mama. So. Batho.
Ke galo yetsa ntena.
O tla mpolela ke nkgonwa.
Awa.
Relax. Ke ntho ya pele o tshwanetse go etsa ena ha motho a o sile le ngwana. Ngwana wa kgona go utlwa ha motho a le stressed e be le go a kopana so.
Mam. O itse gore morodi wa hao ke marata. Ke ra le wa ka. Ke barata bo bohle.
Bona mona ice. Lerato ha le no tlatsa fridge ha le na tlatsa cupboard. Ha le tlatse le mpa le gore se mpa lerato. No mvolo wa kipita. Hona tje ha o so ntse le tšhelete ya di damage. Empa so etsa di open up mo ha ka mo. Nka. Bolle le. Ha ke tsebe le hore na nka reng ho batho ba lapeng ka taba ya mahadi. Batho wa tseba batho ba tshwanang le wena. Ntho e etsang e tletse lenyatso. Ke ho tella man le leire.
Ma, taba she. Fala kuranta maoni mereko ka montle. He le re ne khona re sa mmele wa ka. Go fepa no mvula le zenzile nka ba ke yetsa ntho. Like artist. Ke tira ga matso. Ho le lo tse ding ka ga tšhelete. Ka fitlha. Ma ke teng.
Ska ra ke bua le one bo arabisa go tla ke. Tla go mbashisa ka dimpama ke ha ka mo. Ha le ro monna. Tla tsa madigo. Go bona ha le ro monna. Ke tse monna go lo bana o se bana.
Tanta hai.
Hey. King.
Tsama.
O mentse. Mama wa tseba hore o tshwantse a beng. Ke ntate wa ngwana. Wa le ka hle.
Etsa. Lino ba se le pa mfetso. Sit mani ena go tlile. Oh, ne jo. Hona le mahlaka go yi.
Yeah.
Di mooiste kente di yara fela.
Come on.
Yeah. Mara le o dira no mvula. Aya. Kore hampona ke itse jo nka re o bona alles what is wrong met every man I'm traveling bophelong ba hebo bohle ntjaka. Kore fitla ha bo boy tshwantse ke kobe.
Ma bra. O itse ka gutla. Mara vare ke gore dilo tsa gago di change. Tshwantse ke steady se sharp.
Gape tshwantse ke lokise da ba inomvula. Magadi damages tsa ba le wena fela wa deserve la ding.
Ano ve.
Yeah.
A tsela ntse le da.
Nko sorry. Yebo.
Hey. Ke o hloka.
Ning no.
No, ka usane ke tshwanetse ya mosebetsing and
Nomvula. o batla go hukela spanning ho le eliso
Bathong Aize ke tshwanetse ya mosebetsing a ke sana matsatsi a leave ene tšhelete e o tla tsokae because tšhelete santse tso sama
ja sharp ka o feel tentsa
Zenzile tshwanetse a ye clinicing for the shots tsa hae
gana le tsweteng no
o kila bala chat ya hae read her chart sometimes o kgona ho bona hore bana ba ya every month
sharp man o tshwanetse re be hausana ona tselengwe
o na la appointment Aize Bathong ke tsona dintho tse tswang ke batswadi tsena e seng o rotle mo ka dipopo o tlo tladisa ngwana and then o mo tshegise o tsamaye wa ya ka fo jwang
sharp kira
And then wena umang
Kids.
Oh o mo tshwara again why is Messi le gore o tsa ngwano
O ra ngwanaka.
wa go mo ruta bojalwa wa go mo ruta dikhoto Axel, the coming is again. Oh, it's o tsa kai. O je deng wana? O mo file?
Kumfule.
Oh, pente le di brush. Be ya fatshe ntho tseo. Tsamaya. Hai tse mama, o file mapontana. A o file mapontana yena o file ngwana eng? Aize bula mona. Ke tseba o ruteng ka mo. Wa o hopola. Wa ikgathalla na ntho. Ke a tseba hore o monyane ha tsebe o bua fela wa tseba ha o le sikopela rona. Aize untate Aize ke mosebetsi wa hao. Ke yona ntho e etswang ke bontate eo. Ene ke a tseba hore motho a lokileng fela ke tsebe hore o etsalang ka hlong ya hao. Khutla o rona Aize ra o hloka. Wa tseba mpho e kgolo ka ifang Zenzile ke o bateng ha hao. Hona jwale Aize hana ko sentsane le teng.
akuna sepe se nka mo fang sona a ke itse gore plate e latelang yaka ya hao ya Zenzile gore tlo tswa kae
Ntate nna.
How no vula mosebetsing hape?
Eh mama ke double shift.
Sure, nako e kana kang this time.
Hey batho. E lo ra o sa batla tšhelete ya hao ya koleke.
O ka Mr. Nokauza tlosala le ngwana.
O re ntate wa hae. Aize o teng. Ke kgola o.
Ska ba le ka bua ka go mosebetsing. O ka tshonthong le nngwe. Empa mosebetsi le bana ngwana ka tsoga. Wa tsaya ke ngwana ka ke a utlwisisa. Ke a utlwisisa gore mohlomong o hantle dikobong empa o ke ke ba mamella gore dikobong ngwana ka di sokodise hakana soha. Mohlomong wena le nne le nagana gore tla ba monna le mosadi empa he ngwana ka ene le toro tsa faro. Motho ha o kenya reng he ha o support ha hlomphe le family ya ha ngwana ka le mo lahle man
Mama o qadile akere o bo bua kang
tso ha no mvola bona motle jwang he o yami ha o ka thola motho mo ngwana
Mama ke a tseba hore nana ke setlatla fela ke a mo rata a ke mo ratele tšhelete ya hae kapo eng ke monna lokileng ebile re tlo ba right
Aize. Tamala how?
Say, boys.
Bravusi.
Ja. Altijd mekaar, hè? Nee, ik like dat. Maar jij, man, libo Lazaro, man. Ik zei, waar is die, hè?
Our bona voor de dienst aan jongens.
Kenners?
Sure. Blink to nou Aize.
Je meen, ik is daar open.
Nee. Je moet de timer eerst te wees. Wanneer ze poken. Of ze in de top om raam.
Maar leid die. Wabona wena. Wena goed se ga botlhoko e bo dikase. Net soos enige leidie. Net soos ek. So what? Daar was die tijd, Sani. Cards were given, but we had to play. That's it. Was dat niet geheel nie? Dat was net in constant. Whether you're a gangster or a gentleman, die kwestie was, kan jy provide? Maar ek het jou only die geld gegee. Month in, month out.
Ne ke sa hloke marantanya na hao at least twenke letsoho le sa bonahaleng o ko mo sa ncheck no sa batlo nkitse Noms
Mamela ntse ke zama ho mo founela mama ha arabi and ona le senzile ona ke mosebetsing and o setse le ngwana wa tsama modula a ka ba phone ya hae mare the whole day ho neng ke moleka ka go ba hle go tsamaye lo mcheck
Ma! Ma che Aize? Ma!
he moshimane ko wena ga ke go rileng he ngwana sala bokolla motshegare wotlhe go rileng
ma setse ke mo founetse ma o tlo thola sepetlele o na le nna o lokile ma
Gotse nana. E jeng. Gotse nana. Utlwa story. It's a story. One day, nona le artist sobala. Lebitso la hae ne le Aize. Aize nana le girlfriend yena ne ba mmitsa Nomvula. Ba ba le ngwana. That baby turned out to be the baby girl whose name is Zenzile. Ngwanola ne le Mpho. My baby.
nka ba no le ratjo ta mantsi na rara ka bontate nkare ne le yena mathogo and no ke nagana sure o le di na thola di-envelope ka di-one vele kgwedi ka kgwedi and sure mara ne le di-envelope fela at least if a tsentitsenyana lekwalo or something see something but he never did he never did
ke a ipotsa re wa boiso se setlhana o bona re utlwalega yang ela jaja man sis
Ntwanano, 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 ntwanano.
Le ndoda sekaphenduka usibali makoti vele. Baby daddy mama. Kwenzakalani?
Mona, iri jealous? Iri jealous?
bona o kgesante yang
ke kgesante ngwana wa tseba go pula o ka o etsa mohlolo
a skitse
Welcome back, man.
ga go sa le gotle ke ile ka le jetse go bona ausi wa ka ena ga e le lefielo le sekoropo jealous down ga di bapadise jo ga o ke eng
mama rakgadi a soka le beya mo
gao jale ke makolomakileng gantle tse gao a ise ka ke o tseba le go kolomaka jo batho
sesetlene ke matso a ise ko boleletse mama o na le talente
Hi, everyone. I hope that you're still with us. And if you enjoyed the movie viewing of Family Portrait, please show us in your reactions. I'm sure it's still settling in. It's a short film, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the series in a while. But we want to just have some time for dialogue and reflection. And if there was a critical learning that you took out, from that, as we think about the well-being of our families through Family Portrait, what's the picture of our families? Here we see Nomvula together with Aize and Zenzile, their child, and the mother, and the community, and the nuances, and the stereotypes, and the bias. And yet, I was just watching and seeing Aize say, irrejealous. So what are your critical insights or learnings? Please, those of you that are quick on the chat box, please add in your insights. Let's blow up the chat box with those critical learnings. And those learnings make it interactive. And those of you that are willing to either put forward maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of you that would like to say something this time, please unmute your mics and share it with us. And you're welcome to unmute your video as well if you have the bandwidth. Is that okay, colleagues? Can I get some thumbs up? It's sounding lonely in the webinar when I'm only seeing myself and all dark windows. What say us? So thank you. I got a thumbs up. I guess some folk are putting in some learnings, and I'd like to see the chat box. Anyone willing to unmute and share reflection or an important thought or feedback from the movie as it relates to, promoting the well-being of our families, the well-being of men, of mothers, of children. Please or pick up your hands and we'll know then to recognize you. Let me call some people that I may know that or that I feel could bring in a response at this time. Let's see. Gary Kukumur, I know you arrived early. Please come through. And Annie, yes, thank you, Annie. Please unmute. Thank you. What are you thinking?
Just written something in the chat group.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah.
Go for it. Let's hear your voice.
I think with a bit that I understood there and what I was seeing there is that, as I wrote in there, we as a family unit, we need to take on the roles that are necessary within the family, despite outside bias.
Sure. 100%. Anything more that you want to elaborate on as you think about your sector and your organization that you are part of, Gary?
I think we've basically the team that we've got working at the shelter. I think we do that. We take on the roles that are necessary for the fluid running of the organization. So we do interchanging and things like that. So I think it works pretty well in our organization. We've got a really great team.
Wow. Thank you, Gary. And as Gary says that, I'm reflective of, we take on the roles that benefit the well-being of family. Begin to think about this. So many times inside our faith arena and our communities, rigid roles are explained. How are men supposed to be? How are women supposed to be? This is what women do. This is what men do. But in a society where we're trying to make life and the well-being of our families together, who says dads cannot be diaper carrying bag dads? So this is where it's challenging. So thank you. And yeah, that it sounds quite humble and relaxed, but it's a challenging one to say, take on the roles that will benefit your family. Don't have these rigid lines. I see Annie's hand and Masentle's hand. Annie and Masentle, please come through, unmute. Thank you, Gary.
Hi,
Masentle,
everyone.
please unmute.
Yes,
thank you.
well,
Feel free to unmute your video as well, so maybe we can see you if you are okay to do so.
well, I cannot see the video button here. I'm using the archaic laptop.
Okay.
So let me speak.
Go for it.
Well,
Thank you.
I believe that some men are supportive partners and are willing to be present fathers for their children. As you can see, that we are living in an environment where fatherlessness is the norm, and children are growing up without fathers and are becoming problematic. But as with this one, we can see he wanted to be there, but due to constant discouragement, emotional abuse, constantly being told that he is not good enough for his partner, it is really discouraging. And emotionally, I think what other men are going through, it is kind of injustice to them, and we think they do not want to be present, yet they are being shamed constantly for being present. So it was kind of eye-opening for my side. And we do advocate for women, but on the other hand, let us be nice and kind to men.
Well, Masentle, you're pointing out something that has become important for us to consider, the topic of positive masculinity and how do we transform masculinities. And this work around Fathers Matter that we've been a part of has been an important one. Thank you for your comments, and I hope those of us that are listening, Annie, if you are able to unmute, please do so. And also, if you can't, please put it in the chat box. Mamelo, please unmute. But in the meanwhile, while Mamelo unmutes, Nokolo Guma says, I saw a guy who did not have a relationship with his father, but he told himself that he's going to be the best father, no matter what the community says and how the mother-in-law does not like him. Yes, there are cultural nuances there. I mean, at the one time, I think it was Nomvula's mother who was coaching him to say, hey, you can do better than this, But she made up her mind. And at the end, obviously, it's kind of a romantic vibe at the end, and a loving atmosphere. But even the mother's eyes are open, okay? So yes, it brings out these themes that there are dynamics, family dynamics that are happening all the time. And sometimes even elders don't encourage the well-being of the newly, couple that is trying to make life together. So I see two hands up there, and they are it's Mamelo and
Yeah.
Advocate Rashwant. Okay, Mamelo, go for it, and then over to Rashwant
Yeah.
Bridge Raj. Yes, go for it, Mamelo.
Okay. Good morning to everyone.
Good
So
morning.
yes,
Good
indeed,
morning.
I am a minister. Morning. I am a minister and a leader of the ladies ministry within our church. And not only that, I am part of an NPO, or rather an organization called Save One South Africa. So this is where now we assist young girls and young boys and even families that have been affected by abortion. So when I'm looking at this story that we've just watched, I see that once again, it highlights that fathers matters. As it said even at the end, that fathers do matter. And why did I mention that I'm coming from Save One? One of the things that we are experiencing, or rather when we go out and speak, because we go to universities and schools and so forth, when we speak to young people who have done abortion, especially the boy child, because yes, we do speak to the girls, they do get assistance, because it's all about restoration from our side, because young people, when they abort, which we are not, fighting our government, I mean, this is legal and all of that, but there is something that happens that when you go through that, for some, there are negative effects where young people commit suicide, and others, they get into drug abuse and so forth. But here's something that we never knew, and we are into that space now where young boys have anger issues because a girlfriend aborted the baby without their knowledge, and this is where somebody gets married also, and they have anger issues within their marriage. But it all started because they were not recognized as a father or having a say even. So this story, when I look at it, I look at this guy. Yes, he might not have been making proper ends meet, and all of that, making enough money, but he wanted to be a father, and he was present. And sometimes with the society, we put pressures, or rather we expect the young boys and young men not to have a say. It's as if the child is ours as women. And I'm not trying to go long here, but I wanted to highlight on that point that fathers do matter. And some of the things that we are facing, the pandemic that we are facing, I mean, we are talking about GBV in and out today, but some of these things, they start even from there, where a young boy at some point in his life, he had a girlfriend, and the girlfriend decided to abort, maybe without his knowledge. And here's an anger issue where the wife is dealing with this, not knowing that it started somewhere. So I'm not going to go long. Thank you so much for this opportunity,
Wow.
and for giving us this platform. We're learning
Thank
a
you
lot.
for pouring it out, Mamelo. I mean, these kind of insights are important, and we appreciate your thoughts, and we are learning together. Thank you for adding your voice in. Advocate Rishwant, please come through.
Thank you, Mr. Naika. Greetings to you,
Thank you
and the other colleagues on the webinar. A few points that I would like to raise. First of all, I'm from the Advice Desk for the Abused, which is based at, our head office is based at UKZN in Durban. And the opening statement I wanted to make is that one cannot choose one's family. And the other thing is, quite often, if there's an impasse or strain, it's our pride that holds us back. So I think we need to become a more caring and forgiving society. And one of the good icebreakers that if there's an impasse between two family members, be it siblings or spouses or whatever it is, it's sometimes good on a milestone event like a birthday or anniversary or Mother's Day or Father's Day to extend a hand, just a simple greeting, whether it's physically or whether it's over the telephone or WhatsApp. It does mean a lot. And in conclusion, I think we need to be the change we want to be. Because always in any strained relationships, there's two sides to the story. If one just takes one side and then, run with it, it's not fair. So I wanted to just share those sentiments. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Advocate Rashwant. And also, I've heard people say there could be three sides to the story. Do we have a 360 view of what's going on in our communities, in our families? Yes, we must acknowledge the reality that there are survivors. And in our work, we've also had to work with perpetrators. How can we restore? How can we work? I know it sounds, difficult, but that's a reality. How can we be more caring and kind? And then also in this work, how can we be courageous? Many of the times, people are being socialized by environments that are unhealthy, and then they make unhealthy decisions. Thank you, Advocate Rashwant. Over to you, Annie. I see that they've managed to unmute you, so please unmute and say your say, Annie.
Thank you very much. For me, what stood out the most was the cultural practice. Because the father did not pay damages, so he was denied access to see his child or be with his child. And I have been working with children who are living and working on the streets, young people who are vulnerable, and I've seen how this particular cultural practice has caused more harm to children, because you would find that a mother passes on, or the maternal family passes on, and this child now has no one to look after him or her because the father wasn't given access, because the paternal family wasn't given access to this child. So now the child must be removed because there's no one from the paternal family who can look after him or her. So they come into care knowing that there is a father out there, but we cannot go out and reach out because of this practical cultural practices that he never paid damages. It has created more harm. So for me, I would like to challenge more some of these cultural practices for us to make sure that they are also aligned to the Children's Act, because according to the Children's Act, unmarried fathers still they have equal parental rights and responsibilities as married fathers. So I think it's one of the things that we need to start conscientizing our communities, our families, our churches, to say, look, a parent-child relationship is very important. And if a child cannot have that kind of a relationship, it affects his or her sense of belonging and sense of identity. Thank you.
Wow. Annie, please, you must write that reflection down and send it to me. My email is sethnike@gmail.com. I would love to share that. What a beautiful reflection around what folk will. I mean, English doesn't do it well when it says damages, right? But those of us that would know it would know that we're talking about nhlawulo. And this is the reality of a child being born outside marriage and before any customary rights were made. And what Annie points our attention to is there is the Children Act. And yet cultural practices in some way, we are not challenging it in an unhealthy way. We are challenging those cultural practices, as Annie said, in light of the fact that many children are being left behind in our society. So these are things to be, aware of. And when we talk about the well-being of families, the well-being of men, the well-being of children, just look at that kind of a pace. That sometimes it operates under the radar, but a strong grounding, those cultural values that will not move, to the extent, as Annie has described, that the child, if maternal family are not present, will rather be a child that is abandoned to the streets, right? But not have access to the paternal side of the family. So friends, there are some amazing reflections coming. We've enjoyed the learning. I'm going to read the last one and then I'm going to hand back to...
You had two more hands and I think you missed it. One was in Sika and one was Samukelisiwe. I don't know if they...
Okay, please, yes, please bring them through. Is Insika here?
Greetings, leadership. I am here.
Yes, friends. This guy, if he got the bandwidth, please let him turn on his his video. This is
No.
another colleague of mine. He's a faith leader. I'm really so honored to have him here with us. Nsika Kolaso, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Due to the nature of the place that I'm into now, I'm unable to share the screen, but definitely sure this is a beautiful topic, and the leaders that are contributing in spaces, anything that speaks about culture, that speaks about Lobola, that speaks about Ntlaulo, it speaks about me, and I wish that I hear positive feedbacks. I wish leaders we can also create space maybe to talk about, to teach people about intlaulo and what happens, because in African, when your cow gets into my into my space and eats my maize, my maize, the owner of the cow must come and pay that remorse, that damage, so that because his animals have entered in my space and have fenced it, they've entered wrongly in my space. So there's a lot of things that as faith leaders we need to also to teach each other as we are rising about these challenges in the adoption that are happening. Yes, culture has a problem, but we have another culture, that of ignorance, that when we get to Muslim precept, you want to do your ZCC, you want to do your ZCC culture in Muslim. When you get to a Catholic, you want to do your own Shembe ways in Catholic, whereby wherever you add, you need to respect the culture of the space. The problem here that we see in most of cases also is that people don't respect other people's cultures on how they do things. Because your family doesn't practice that, then you cannot respect other families that practicing that. There's a lot of dynamics that we need to sit down as leaders and look and debate and have a progressive debate in terms of how do we then teach our people, our children in LO schools. They teach them Ubuntu and how we operate. Thank you so much, but I'm enjoying the space leadership. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, Nsika. And maybe also we must have Nsika think with us about, having a consultation with faith leaders around the cultural practices and to hear what are the voices, and maybe we can work it through with the national shelter movement as well. But thank you, Nsika. One person would have said it like, when you're in Rome, do as the Romans do. But we cannot do as the Romans do if it's unjust.
Yes.
This is people said, oh well, you gotta be following the suit. But sometimes for the sake of justice, we gotta stand in the gap. Marisha, who was the other person that wanted to speak?
Samukelisiwe, and then another hand.
Samukelo?
So after Samukelisiwe,
Yes.
and Intabi Singh.
Yes, you also have a couple of comments in the
Okay,
chat
please come
box
through.
as well.
Samukelesiwe and Tamise. Okay, we'll come to the chat box and we'll get there.
Okay.
Yes, please go ahead, Tamise, and then
Okay.
Samukelesiwe.
Good afternoon, colleagues. You are talking about a topic that is very dear to my heart. I had a father who was alive but absent in my life, and anything after that, my parents divorced when I was young, and my father was very abusive. But I thank God that I was able to lead him to God before he died, and we forgave. But it was a hard journey. And since then, I have taken it up to me, to mentor as many young men as I could, and also to try and correct the wrongs that are created somehow. It could be culture or using the Bible in a wrong way. And I thank you for the Father's Matter. I've got to know about it a few years ago, and the films that you do, they are really challenging the status quo. And I believe that the starting point, as one of the colleagues has said, is to be the change that we want to see. Start making Father's Day a big thing. Start making International Men's Day a big thing. I remember last year I sent Happy International Men's Day to some prayer group. And people started shouting at me. They said, we are busy fasting here and praying, and you're talking about International Men's Day. Who knows about it? I took that upon myself and say, as much as we are praying as leaders, as much as we make Women's Day, International Women's Day, fashionable, We as women, we need to start making Men's Day, Father's Day a big thing. Because I believe that, Mr. Naika, it starts there. You know how Mother's Day is a big thing, it's a busy thing. We go all out. But when it goes to Father's Day, even at the malls, it is not as big. And I think those are the first things that we need to challenge. And as well as I'm glad there are men and women of God here, we need to understand during our men's conferences, women's conferences, tell the truth that God is the source. I think what brings men down now, even this femicide thing, it contributes to it because men are being taught that they are providers. And it's a wrong teaching. God is a provider, God is a source. He decides to choose whom He provides through. So our men, even our boy child who are 18, 16, Fuzeke babethe, they must have a girl and give roses. It's not wrong to do that, but the pressure that men are on, that's why we have families where men kill women because he cannot stand a woman who's earning more than he does. And that should not be the point. You should understand that it's not about the wife bringing money, the husband bringing money, but is God choosing who to provide through. So I think it's things like that also that we need to address and take this further. When parliament sits, when the provincial legislature sits, when the traditional leaders sit, we have colleagues whom God has given them that grace and the wisdom to sit in such missions to say that when the young boys goes to the mountain, people like you guys who are invested with knowledge, who knows what is the meaning of a man, go there and tell them that being a man means that be responsible. Not that be the father who was not there, but be the change that you want to see. And being a man is not abuse. So I'm really thankful for attending here. And really, we must
Thank you,
make
Ntabi
it
Singh.
professional. Thank you.
Yes. I was just thinking to just build on with the thought about, what Ntabi saying as mentioned, that when we talk about the well-being of men in society, remember, this is not now to take away focus from mothers and the well-being of mothers and women. Yet we know that the provision gap, if a man does not have economy, he can't be involved in the well-being. And these are real reflections. Also, like Nsika has mentioned, as faith traditional leaders, possibly a consultation needs to happen with those schools of induction into manhood, and what is actually being discussed with young men. And I think these are the spaces that we can flip the script on domestic-based violence. With this, we're going to have to engage in work. There was another voice, and Marisha will tell me the name, but I want to read this by Sikanda Kupo, and we're coming to close, and then I'm going to
Yeah, but I'm not
please,
seeing
Samu,
him
if you
any
can
longer,
unmute.
Seth, because they was waiting
Okay.
quite a while from the beginning.
Okay, my apologies, Marish. I didn't see the hand up. So here
Also,
we go.
Seth, sorry, one
Yes.
second. Also, you've got Sikander who's posted something. So there's a couple of comments in the chat box as well.
Okay, so let me hand over. Anissa, can you just take over for what's on the chat box right now? That you
I'll
want
do that. So do you want me to do that first, or you want to finish up the hands and then?
Yeah, if there's a hand up, we can take someone, but let's just give some attention to the chat box for now, and then I'm going to close this out. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thanks for that, Sikander. And thank you, everybody, for engaging so robustly. It's really great to see that everybody is making such contributions and sharing, and it indicates for us that it's a safe space. Sikander is saying when colonization happened and new religions spread, they brought very strict ideas about how men and women should behave, who people should marry, and that men should have authority. So these ideas, so these ideas were described as moral improvement, but they were, sorry, my scrolling is going a bit funny. improvements. But they were also used to control people and societies, and the effects are still visible today in systems that favor heterosexual men. Heterosexual men in stigma against those who are different, and in the gender-based violence that many people across the continent still experience. Understanding family. Why my scrolling is going so offish?
I can pick it up for you there. Understanding
help,
family is something
Anissa?
flexible.
Please?
Yeah, okay, go
Okay.
for it, Marish.
Understanding family is something flexible, allows for greater inclusion of different arrangements and relationships. As a society, we need to move past the heteronormative way of understanding family.
And it goes very far.
That's such an important contribution, Sikander. Thank you so much for that. Shall I continue?
Yes, Marisha, maybe
Okay,
two
my
or two, three
husband grew
more.
up
And is there
without
another
his.
hand?
Not yet. I don't see that. My husband, so this is from Intabi
Okay,
Singh. My
thank
husband grew
you.
up without his biological father. Looking at him raising our sons now, you can see that it's from the bottom of his heart. My late brother was not working, but he made sure he was a present father. We grew up with an alive father, but absent in our lives. Fathers do matter. Sina is saying,
Wow.
Okay, and then Annie was saying, I have great respect for our cultural practices. However, we still need to make decisions that are in the best interest of the child.
Yes. Well, thank you, friends. I'm gonna be handing to Marisha now. I just want to close this out. And Marisha, I'm not coming back on this because of time. But when we're thinking about this, because it moved in this way, promoting strong family relationships, building resilience, fostering a supportive community. For myself as a faith leader, as well as a man, as well as a husband and a father, I've been doing work around transforming masculinity through Fathers Matter and Fathers Matter to End Gender-Based Violence. And in your note pack, we'll give you a copy of this in PDF. Here's a summarize from the 9 messages, 4 major themes come across that Heartline speaks about. And we've utilized it in our work where we talk about fathers and men matter in light of a more well-being for our society, ending gender-based violence. Understand a father's caring role. And as people said today, it's not just about their money. Encourage shared parenting skills. So parenting is for both the mom and the dad, both sides of the family. Promote active play and involvement. In play and involvement, this is where we can teach values, guidance, and we can educate. Foster supportive social networks. This means the networks of the community. Faith sector is in the sector. Mosques and temples and churches need to be putting on events in the calendar that actually enhance the well-being of family. Maybe a workshop for couples together, a retreat. When last have we done these kind of things? Okay, and I mean some people do, but not everyone is doing it. Yet it can enhance. Here's a resource pack. Some of you that would like to, the video that we played today can be a conversation that you take in. And please, you can contact Marisha and maybe Marisha can put it into the chat box. These videos and phones are accessible and discussion guides to get families talking. And then there's a chat box where you might not be a father. It's called Fathers Matter Coach, but I know Andile at Heartlines has taken a lead on it. Now we've got 11,000 people a part of an app, a digital platform that interacts with you via WhatsApp, and that's the number that is giving coaching insights for the well-being of children. Yes, it's directed at men, but we've got women, we've got elders, we've got teachers that are online. And so even if you're not a father, you're not a man, check out Fathers Matter Coach as a resource. So friends, at this time, I'm grateful that you were able to share with us and watch this, the movie Family Portrait. We're really grateful for your insights and the way that you are thinking about this. And hopefully it's also building on to how we think about promoting the well-being of our families and fostering a supportive community. With that, I'm going to hand over to Marisha as we take it further. Marisha, back to you on contextual examples and practical tools.
Thank you, Seth. And thank you for that wonderful engagement. I think as we close off that section, important points that have come up is understanding how in our families they are quite diverse. You know, we don't just have a nuclear family in South Africa. That's the standard. That's the beauty of family. You know, that we make families not only through bloodlines but in many different ways. And many of you are working in shelters across South Africa. You know that those spaces become the only family for some of the children, for some of the people that live at those centers as well. And so I think it's important in the many difficulties that family faces, even the traumas that people face, it's sometimes hard to do some of those positive practices that we had started off with earlier. If you remember, the communication, the active listening, the creating safe spaces, the having meals together. So here are some simple tools that we're going to talk about. And I think one of the first ways that we want to anchor this time or to start with it is to understand that in a family, what is in our control and what's outside of our control. And often we know this, we cannot control the actions of others whatsoever. That the only power that we do have is control our own reactions, attitudes, behaviors, and our responses to that. So this is something very interesting in the work of gender-based violence, because often we say that perpetrators perpetrate, well, for many different reasons, but also because of the lack of control for them, their own ways of responding, of regulating, and then they want to control others because they can't control themselves. So there's a play of control in that. And often, if you think about, we know that most men in South Africa, though it's not the case that only men are perpetrators, most men, when we look at most perpetrators are men. So we know that even when we've watched this movie, we've seen that men and women are socialized into certain ways of being. You know, whether you grow up in different places or spaces or religious communities, people have talked about, I think Sikandar was saying earlier, how, you know, through practices, men was given, or the heteronormativity, that they are on top, that they are the ones that are given power, and was passed off as the moral, you know, goodwill, if you can say it in that way. And so what becomes important is to really understand, especially in families, how has some of the socialization has become harmful in the way we have our relationships with each other, whether it's partner relationships, whether it's sibling relationships or parent-child relationships. And to go back and see, you know, these are the ways that in many ways has not been beneficial for our families. I think Gary also said it earlier. What is the fluidity that we now need? Fluidity of roles, fluidity of what is going to be of benefit to the whole system, to the child, to the parents, and how do we transform some of our very traditional rigid understandings, which has been in some ways quite harmful and not allowed families to thrive, not allowed families to journey on in terms of being more a healing space or even a more just space. And so here are some basic tools, is to start with the self. And I think the deep introspection that is needed, understanding and interrogating our own attitudes, thoughts, and beliefs. And where does that come from? What has been helpful for me? What has been harmful for me? what has been ones that has allowed me to have resilience, has allowed me to overcome some of the traumas or the biases or the stereotypes that I've faced as a person within the system. So often again, men and boys, are taught to suppress their emotions, and that they mustn't cry, that they must be strong, and that they must be authoritative, and that girls, you can cry and you can be, it's okay if you are emotional, because girls are emotional. And so in some ways, this has also contributed to the whole aspect of how we are not able to regulate. And for example, we've seen that when men are not able to share their emotions, boys are not able to share their emotions, and when they suppress it, eventually they do regulate in a way where they do become violent if they're not taught taught in practical, helpful ways how to regulate that. And so here's one tool. In the heat of conflict, of discussions, of being, in the crux of matters where things are becoming quite tough. And so I'm going to ask Seth to put on that slide. It's just a simple one, but especially when the temperature, or of the conversation, whether it's an argument, whether it's a misunderstanding, how do we bring collective care to that system? So to the person, whether you identify yourself as perpetrator or victim or survivor, and in family systems, there is no one or the other at times. In many spaces, we all play roles of either perpetrators, victims, or bystanders. And it happens in different ways. And that's what normally happens in a family system. So here's a simple one. When things become overwhelming, how do we teach children the simple aspect of how do they take a deep breath? How do we, as whether you're a parent or a partner and you want to scream and shout or, react, become very reactive, how do you control your own emotions? And so here's a simple one of just taking a deep breath. Now, let's just practice that just for a moment. Just take a deep breath. And out. Now, we often think that this is something, it's so simple and it really can't do much. But research, and we know what studies have shown, is that often when perpetrators or people that act violently, it's often they are moved to a space of where they've completely moved out of their rational thinking, reasoning brain to that, what we call the lizard brain, where you are just doing something and not really engaging with your whole self and your whole brain. And so what would be important is how do we start teaching this from an early age to children, to parents, to each other in relationships when it becomes too heated? How do we take that deep breath for those stresses? Because those stresses build up. And eventually, if we don't deal with it in positive ways, in constructive ways, we do then tend to find the system becomes more harmful and then eventually leading to more abuse. Here's another one on the left. It's a grounding exercises. And this often happens when, there's high stress, high anxiety in a system, in a family, and to allow the family to even, share this together, especially in the heat of discussions where people are speaking over each other, and just allow them to find a space and a grounding exercise. 5 things they can see, 4 things they can touch, 3 things they can hear, and 2 things they can smell, and 1 thing that they can taste. And this just simmers down some of the heated emotions that people are feeling. And for them to come to a state of, I feel a little bit more grounded, I feel a little bit more in control, and I can now speak with my reasoning brain again. I'm going to ask Seth to quickly play that video. And here's another one, a simple one of stop, breathe, listen, and then respond. So if we can get that video, Seth, and it's a really simple one of how do we attend to those very conflictual situations that may arise in families, just in misunderstandings or even in times where we do become loud and have a screaming match at each other.
So let's talk about listening.
That's easy.
So let's talk about listening.
That's easy.
We all think we're good listeners, but have you ever done this? Or this? Or this?
Oh dear, I have.
Well, sadly, we all have.
Oh well, if everyone does it, then it can't be that big a deal.
Actually, it is. When we don't listen, we're saying, yeah, what you're saying isn't important.
Oh dear. So, what should I do?
Well, be present and focus when your friend is talking. We call this active listening.
That sounds hard.
Well, the more you do it, the better you become. A great way to practice active listening is to stop.
Like at a stop street.
Not that kind of stop. It stands for stop, breathe, listen, respond. So first you stop what you're doing. And yes, you guessed it. Then you breathe. Now you're ready to listen and
What if I
without interrupting. And we don't just listen with our ears. We listen with our whole body.
My body talks?
You betcha. Look at Jim over here. What do you think his body is communicating to his friend?
He's bored for sure. So how can I not be like Jim?
Well, make sure your eyes are looking straight at the person talking. Your feet are still on the floor. Your mouth is quiet. No talking or making weird sounds.
What's next?
Now you're ready to respond in a kind and patient way. Find out more about the situation, but don't try to solve everything.
But if I can't solve the problem, what can I say?
So say something to encourage them, like, tell me more, or how did that make you feel? Or even, what can I do to help?
So, to be an active listener, I need to stop, breathe, listen, and only then respond?
A+.
Crushed it!
Okay, any comments or thoughts on that? I know it seems like a very simple one, but when it comes to the aspect of being a safer faith community, a safer family, a safer person, it's about us becoming very intentional on how we respond and taking it down to that very easy step at the beginning of how do I control my reactions? How do I want to respond rather than become reactive? It's the same thing of talking about, whether you want to be that temperature gauge that's just measuring how hot or cold is it, or do you want to be that thermostat? I need to calm things down. And often at times, I can tell you as a mom and as a partner, I'm being that temperature gauge where I'm just like, from zero to hero. If something is making me mad, instead of being that temperature gauge at times, okay, let me calm it down. Let me truly be actively listening. Any thoughts to that? Anything on the chat or any comments or questions? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Do you think it's something that can be put into practice in teaching families how to do this? Myself as a family therapist, I think it's something that we take for granted in simple active listening steps, especially when I'm doing a therapy or having a family together and they're trying to deal with an issue. Everybody wants to say their turn. Everybody wants to say what's going on, but it's hard for them just to sit and truly what it means to listen to the other person and listening, not to respond, but listening to understand. And the listening to understand is such an important aspect of really enriching families and building bond. So that's very important. So Amogelang saying this was incredibly simplified in the best way possible. Definitely something we can put into practice. Yes, as a family, we need to pay attention to the emotional tone behind the words. Absolutely, Louisa. From my own family, I think this is something, and again, it's tradition and culture. Like in certain families, when we have it in our own family, it's when you want to say something, we use like a screamy and shouty voice because it's important. But sometimes my kids just shut down. And they were like, but you were screaming and shouting. But I was like, no, I was just being, but that's because it was passed down. And that's how my parents did it, or how, Seth's parents did it. And now he does it. And so we are not always mindful of that. But then how do we? Because when that keeps going on, it's what leads us to the next thing that I want to share. And this really becomes a determining factor about whether relationships become more destructive or whether they become whole and healed in families. And the Gottman Family Institute had a look at this and explained it that they can almost predict when a family would be torn apart based on how communication styles are operating within a family, what they call the 4 horsemen. So on the left-hand side, you have 4 ways of communicating that when this is done in families or even in relationships, whatever the relationship is, whether it's a work relationship, whether it's a partner relationship, or whether it's siblings or children, it's important to look out for these. So the first one is criticism. Now, I think we all sometimes, want to say, okay, this is what's wrong, this is the issue, this is what you are doing wrong. But this is different in that it's dealing with problems through harsh blaming or hurtful expressions or judgment or disapproval. So you focus on just the person's flaws and you make it about the personal flaws rather than the changeable behaviors. So what does this mean? It's often like, for example, if the house is a mess or if the kitchen is dirty and you say, oh, this kitchen is so dirty, you are such a slob, you are such a dirty person. So it's attacking now the character of the person. And the more that this is done, the more defensive a person becomes to be able to even engage. So how do we deal with this? What's the antidote? Is a gentle startup. And a gentle startup simply means you deal with things in a calm and gentle way. You focus on the problem and not on the person. So what's important also is to start up or have this gentle startup is to choose the right time to do this. Often, we may choose a time where someone is already so stressed out, they're not going to hear you, or they may just become completely defensive. Another one is to use what we call warm body language instead of the cold body language. And what that simply means, warm body language is to start with I statements, is to say, I feel that, frustrated when I see the dishes. So it's not putting the blame on the person, oh, you're so dirty and you left the dishes, but I feel frustrated when I see the kitchen, sink dirty. So it puts the responsibility or on how you are sharing it and not just blaming them. That already makes it more receptive for the person to listen. And then could you please help me do the dishes, or could you please clean up? Because you are starting from that I statement. I think Louisa or somebody on the chat was also, yes, the emotional tone behind the words. That's what warm language is watching what your tone is in that. So the second one that I don't see it on the slides anymore is contempt. So contempt is almost like, showing your anger or disgust to someone. It's almost hostility towards the person. and you use insults again, or you act like you are superior in some way, like your way is the best way. I think someone shared that as well, what you have to say is the most important. How you want to do it is the most important. And to tell you the truth, like we've shared earlier, Seth and I are partners. We are raising a family together. I have a very different parenting style from him. And sometimes I believe, no, my way is best. This is the best way, and I don't want to hear his way. But what would it mean for me to really authentically listen and understand what is he trying to do? Where is that coming from? What is his intention, and how is that being communicated? And so how do we deal with the antidote is build a culture of appreciation. And this is something that's so neglected in families, is how do we continue to remind each other about and thank each other, and not inauthentically, but if a child has done something, how do you find gratitude in that, in who they are, not just because they completed a task, but instead of saying, oh, well done on completing the task, but noticing who they are, and you've worked so hard, or you've given so much of yourself. And so that's an important part of dealing with the contempt of when someone feels attacked or insulted or abused. How then you do come alongside and make sure that you show fondness, you show admiration, you show affection, you give compliments, you recognize their strengths. And that's important in building up and showing love and care in that moment. If there are any questions, please do comments, please do put it on in the chat. Here's another one, is defensiveness, is where we deflect responsibility for, our own mistakes and behaviors, or refusing to accept feedback. So if we've done something, we then victimize ourselves to ward off the attack or reverse the blame. And often this happens in the relationships of GBV, where the perpetrator will say, oh, it's because, she did this, that's why I had to set her straight, or because he was in this way, and that's why I had to react in that way. So it's almost becoming defensive and saying, no, it was really their fault, that's why I reacted in that way. And we hear that so often. In relationships. So how do we move to a space of allowing each other to say, what do I take responsibility for? And in this is in no way taking responsibility if you were abused, or if you were, for example, hurt in a relationship. It's not about saying that, I'm taking responsibility for me being abused, but I'm taking responsibility for my healing now, or I'm taking responsibility that I will put boundaries in place and say, I need to do my self-care because I was hurt. So to understand it in that way as well. And then the other one is stonewalling. I think this often happens when it becomes quite conflictual, that we just withdraw. And sometimes that's needed for safety. Sometimes that's needed, that I need to take a walk, I need to go away, I need to be able to breathe. But when you check out, you always have the responsibility, how do I check back in? And to give a time, or to give, let's check in tomorrow, let's check in a week's time. Or, I need some distance for now, but I'm going to come back and this is what I'm going to do. So how do we deal with that stonewalling, which is really separating and disapproval and distance, is to say, I need to take a break, and I need to spend some time dealing with my own regulation, my own issues. I need to soothe myself, but then this is when I'm going to come back and check in. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to ask Anissa for comments, or maybe from her experience and view, how is that landing in terms of family relationships, maybe others as well. I'm seeing Koliwe's, I'm taught a woman support. I would like to know if it's possible to get a free counseling. Let's say, for example, I'm a client. In order for me to get an online counseling, I need to have data. And if I need counseling session in town, I need to have taxi fare and to take me from town. Where exactly a client can get free counseling if a client does not have money to go to town and does not have data? Okay, so if we have responses to Koliwe in the chat, please let's respond to Koliwe there. Anissa, at this time, I'm going to ask you to just hold the space. Maybe there's questions or thoughts for those, some tools that was shared, that I shared. Anybody has some comments or?
Thank you so much for that, Marisha. I think it was particularly useful. I think you covered a lot of important things. And I also think that often we don't listen to ourselves. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. And also, someone mentioned the tone and our emotional space. And, very often we come into contact with other people. We might go to work and come back, maybe we had a bad day, and sometimes something is directed or channeled in the wrong space. And I think that for me, sometimes it's important for us to listen to when we say it in a relation to family preservation and even in terms of conflict resolution. I think when it comes to conflict, these are the kind of things that we overlook and don't give enough importance to when we communicate, that leads to conflict. And I remember that communication is circular. So I'll say something, you say something, and it kind of snowballs. But I think for me, what's also very important is to always clarify. If we're not sure of something, the important thing, and that's the gap when we communicate, is we don't stop, we just assume. So you say something, I assume, I respond or react rather than respond. And remember that the reaction is more emotional, it's instinctual. We don't think, and response is more, I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm processing what you're saying. I'm understanding what you're saying. If I don't understand, I'm going to clarify, and then I respond mentally. So that's more mental process as opposed to a reaction, which is more a raw emotional how can I say, message. And I think it's only important that we clarify. And I don't know if maybe conflict resolution is something that we also need to look into when we look at relationships and family dynamics. Because I often find that what we do is, and you spoke, Marisha, very well about the I language, about owning your messages, and you is very blaming. But also when we do conflicts and arguments, we often address people than issue. So it might start out about the dishes. But then it's like, you're so lazy and you guys don't care about me. And so it becomes about you and me rather than the issue of the dishes. And I think that's all of us, like you said, Marisha, sometimes, we're all guilty of it. We might be able to talk about it and identify what the flaws are in our communication, but the reality is that we all do it. And in that moment, we just like kind of lash out. And then the next thing you know, it's about you like this and you like that, and about when, and then we go into the past, and then we dredge up all the different things. That's when it becomes particularly ugly. And when you spoke about criticism, it's no more positive criticism, it's just blatant smashing and that kind of thing. So conflict resolution for me is good, particularly when we look at gender-based violence. We get a lot of family conflict. Doesn't fall necessarily under gender-based violence, but at our helpline, we often get people who struggle to identify what the difference is between handling conflict constructively as opposed to when does it start crossing certain lines.
Thank you, Anissa. Some very valuable insights there from, our conversations being cyclic and circular, and how do we look at how we are in many ways, guilty of things, and what changes we can make. I'm seeing two important comments come up from the chat, and please feel free, anybody, to answer or share, because this is for, I think, all of us here. I know Seth had put one final takeaway tool for you to use. Maybe, this month of love, I'll share that just before we go, that you can use for your relationships. But Koliwe was saying, she's at Mtata Women's Support Center, and about that counseling, I think many spaces and in communities, we don't have the means or the resources or the privilege of seeing a counselor, of seeing a therapist. Many families and people are left to deal with some really deep, difficult issues on their own, or even, not having a safe space. And I think this is what becomes really important is even when there isn't a counseling center, which we know that certain issues have to be seen by more professional therapists and things like that. But how does what we have, where we are at, become just even for that moment, even if it's 30 minutes in a week of, really conflictual week for a family? Can they have 30 minutes of even that Intata Women's Support Center where the family can come and just have a way of really speaking of what Seth had shared before, of the ask, of the listen, and the tell. So you don't have to be a counselor to create that space. You don't have to be a professional in knowing, but just setting simple values. This is how we are going to anchor it as, whether it's the couple or the family. And I think Louisa also asked that about the sibling rivalry that often goes on, when parents are accused of, oh, you're treating that one better and you're treating me like this, is again and we often have to do this with our children. We have 4 kids, 3 of them are teenagers and one who's 11 teen. So a lot of having to just set that space again, that container. We're going to have an open, honest conversation. You're going to be listening a lot and using the ask. Here's our values for asking. Here's our values for listening. And here's our values for telling. Because then that's when deeper understanding comes in. Because we keep talking at each other and not understanding. So for that example that Louisa gave, the parents saying, oh no, this was what you did. And really sitting down, even with a child, with children, it doesn't have to be, it could be ages. We've used it with ages from 3-4 years old to 18-year-olds, about how do we have a space. Everyone's going to get a chance to talk. Everyone's get a chance to listen, and everyone's going to get a chance to tell us how they're feeling. And this really slows things down. And then asking each person to share, what are you hearing them say? I think that's the hardest thing and to do. And that's when Anissa mentioned now the clarifying is, I've just heard you say this. Am I hearing you right? It takes a long time to do, but it's so important because I think even especially with the sibling rivalry, it will clear up a whole lot of things when as a parent you are able to share, this is why I did what I did and this is how I've done it. And to ask them, do you understand what I'm trying to say? And then they will say, no, but you did this, and then go back again. So it's really about slowing things down a lot. I'm saying that word again, because people often ask, how do you do this? It's about slowing it down and moving to the little steps that you need to put in place. And using that just one tool of, again, ask, listen, tell. Remember, you're getting the slides again, and Koliwe as well. You can even use it in your center. You don't have to, have them go and see a professional, but allow them to use that as well. Any other questions? So maybe people want to input there?
Marisha, can I just revert to the chat a bit, right? So thank you, Ayaka. She's saying that Tata Women's Support Center is now inclusive to take men who are in need of support. And also a little bit earlier, I saw rape crisis is offers free service counseling services to survivors. Thank you for that, Mary Ann. Also, while we're on, Seth has posted on the chat about requesting another 10 minutes, if everybody would just bear with us for a few moments. I also saw something in the chat a little bit earlier, someone asking about sibling rivalry.
Rivalry.
Yes, and feeling like somebody's always. So we encourage not to use the always and never. So whenever we communicate, we try to be as specific as possible, and refer to, and preferably, and that is why, we say that the more accurately and immediately we can resolve conflict, the better, because then we stay with the issue rather than working with the person. But also, I want to say that, anger it can be as constructive. Annie, I see your hand is up. I'm just going to finish and then you can go. So anger can be a very constructive, but it can also be a very, very destructive emotion. And the problem with anger is that and related to the listening part, if someone is not heard, they say, when someone is not heard, you're going to speak louder and louder, right? So just keep an eye out. When someone keeps on repeating something, they're often not feeling heard. And sometimes that can build up a lot of anger and resentment. So that's just something. But yes, sibling rivalry, I think it's important for parents to listen. And I also find what's useful is, we say I spend family time, I spend time with my children, but sometimes you need to spend alone time with each child. And I find that the value in that is so great, because when we spend time with all our children together, it's like, okay, we're a family, but then we miss that one-on-one deep connection with each child and getting to know them really well. So I don't know if that's helped, and maybe possibly, these are kind of topics that take a very long time. We can go into a lot of detail. We usually have part 2s and 3s and 4s, but we're also hoping between the three of us, Seth, Marisha, and myself, that we were able to cover as much as possible to leave you with lots of constructive stuff going forward. Sorry about that, Marisha. I thought I'll just tie it up with some
No,
of the
thank you
comments.
so much. That's really good. Thank you so much, Anissa. From my side, just to say that Seth has put that last tool in the chat. Please do it for, I know Valentine's is over, but it's a way of doing some of the antidotes that I was sharing with you. And it's a simple thing about gratitude, about really learning something new about in the relationship, accomplishment, and then delight. And that's something that can really enrich relationships. So even if you're doing that one-on-one thing that Anissa said with your child, it's a takeaway activity. Just healthy and successful relationships require nurturing and attention and positive engagement, consistent affirmation and appreciation. It helps to present negative feelings and actions. So here's one way is the gratitude, learning, accomplishment, and delight. So have fun with that. And thank you so much for listening. And thank you so much for staying, even though we've taken a little bit more of your time. Anissa, may I hand back over to you? Please remember you'll get all of this slides if you've registered to your inbox.
Marisha, can I just advise our colleagues, those of you that stayed, we just want to say, if you want to keep the chat box, you can click on the right side of your chat box on the 3 dots and save the chat. It's part of our learning together. So well done to you all for making it an interactive learning session with your insights as well. Back to you, Anissa.
Thank you so much, Seth. Again, just referring to the chat quickly, I see Sikandar has posted something. He's requesting help from somebody who can help. dealing with children's safety. I don't know if
So if
Vanessa,
I
you
can
might
say,
be the right.
oh, yes, Vanessa is also, I'm not sure if she's still here, but we're an interfaith movement and we work with the Global Interfaith Network, who also comes alongside faith communities in supporting LGBTQI plus communities. And so, Sikandar, that's definitely one area of space that we could help with. And then there are a few others, so we can definitely be in touch. And then I'm not sure if Vanessa is here. She can also definitely share.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we were. Sorry, did someone want to say something? I heard something for a moment. Okay, so I'm glad that we were able to make connections. I think some valuable insights and resources were picked up, and even possible collaborations during this workshop. If there aren't any questions or comments, I think on closing, first of all, um, without fail, I should say, Marisha and Seth, thank you for delivering an awesome session. I know I enjoyed it. It's a topic that's particularly my interest. And also, I'd like to say that yes, we mentioned Valentine's Day, we mentioned the month of love, we mentioned the month of relationships. But again, we know working in the gender-based violence space that relationships can be a source of great joy and happiness. But for a lot of people, it's not that. And it causes a great deal of distress, a lot of heartache, a lot of heartbreak. And we're hoping that through our workshops and through our sessions, that we can provide support to people who need it to help them in their relationships so that it can become better, whether it's your relationship with yourself, whether it's your relationship with your creator, whether it's your relationship with your family members, whether it's your relationship with your partner. I also see Annie. Thank you. Okay, she's responded. Second, and yeah, okay. So that's fine. Thank you so much for responding, Annie.
And Anissa, if Sikandar would like, he can reach out to me and we can talk, because I think more of the focus should be with the family. We can talk about the faith leader, but for the care of the child and the family. Yes, thank you.
Okay. On that note, if I don't know if any closing remarks, Seth or Marisha.
Yeah, well, thank you,
From my
everyone. Oh, sorry, after
Go
you,
ahead,
Marisha.
Seth. You go.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for the great opportunity it was to learn with you today. Hope the insights we've prepared are helpful to you. Please connect with the organizations that are here: National Shelter Movement for South Africa, Heartlines, and Faith Action to End Gender-Based Violence have a presence online. For those of you who'd like to know more about the work we do around Fathers Matter and transforming masculinities and the Fathers Matter coach, please reach out. I'll ask Marisha to put our contact details in the chat box. And I'm hopeful that we can continue this kind of learning space. Last year, we saw about 5 learning sessions for faith leaders and community leaders. And thank you all for just enriching the conversation today with your own insights. Apologies to our colleague, Samu Kelesiwe. I think she dropped off. We didn't see you. So, Samu, it's on the recording. Apologies from my side for not recognizing you. But we wish you well and look forward to another time with you all again. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you so much from my side as well to everybody here for bringing who you are and your experiences. And thank you, National Shelter Movement, for opening up the space and holding it. I think for all of us that's in this work, I often say this, we do this work because we are the work. We know that there's many things and things that we've faced and things that we have come through. So and many people have said it here, in order for us to see families that are more healthy is how do we become more healthy ourselves in order for our faith spaces to become more safe, our communities to become more safe. It means that we need to be safe people for each other. And so please do take care of yourselves. Please be gentle on yourselves, and please think about what is in your control and what's outside. Sometimes we're so hard on ourselves. Things are not always in our control, but the things that I do have control and power over, how can I transform that to become more healed, more just, and blessings on your journey as well.
Thank you, Marisha and Seth again. So just remember, every 3 months, so look out for our next workshop. We've been very, very punctual, so I'm thinking May we'll be back on, so look out for us. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us and spending your morning with us. I'm hoping most of your expectations were met. I know it's a work in progress. And on that note, have an awesome day. And see you guys at our next workshop. Take care. Bye.
See you all. Bye-bye.
Those, Anissa, we didn't get a picture. Those of them who would like, please, if you'd like to be part of our socials, please turn on your video now as we say goodbye.
You should call it a family portrait, because we're doing
Yes, thank you, Gary.
portrait.
A family portrait. It's time for the family portrait. Please turn on. We've got 40 people here. Thank you. Family portrait time. We'll give another 15 seconds, but so they can find the space to turn on the videos. Are they able to, Melanie? Some are.
Turn on the video.
They
I've
can.
given most permission. They haven't accepted the panel invite. I can try again.
Okay, here we go. Melanie sending a panel invite because we set it up in a webinar style. Reshwant, I guess you can't turn in your video. Is that the problem?
Yeah, I'm trying to, but
There we see Annie. Hi, Annie.
Yes, Annie, you gotta accept the prompt by Melanie. Okay, so we got a few. Let me take a picture of that one. The next time we'll have a better setup on the webinar. I know our team will do well with the setup. So please give a great smile. You guys is going for socials. Oh, there's another colleague who popped in there.
Ayaka, Louisa.
Ayaka, we're gonna get another one with Ayaka. Hey, Louisa, good to see you, Louisa. Yes, finally the Louisa is putting all those amazing insights we got there, and then we got one more on the other side, page 2, from my deck right here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being a part of this time. Take care.
Go well, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.